Right. Hi. Good evening, Carnegie Vanguard. Welcome to the February PTO meeting. My name is Maria Calzada. I'm the PTO president, and it is February 16th, 7 p.m., and we're going to get started. Hopefully, everyone can see the agenda on the screen, and you should have gotten an email overnight with links to the agenda, as well as information about not just the agenda, but also the minutes from last month's meeting. If you did not get that and you are a PTO member, check your spam. If it's not in your spam, then you may have not signed up.
I didn't get that email.
Okay. So if you did not, then perhaps you have not signed up with the PTO or have not signed up to get emails. So whenever our communications VP, Mary, who
That's fine, you can continue.
Okay. So if anyone has any questions or comments, if you don't mind holding them until we get to the Q&A session, or if you put them in the chat, we'll try to kind of get to everybody at once. Mary's going to review how to do that. Okay, so quickly, I just wanted to go over a few points.
Sorry, I've got a question.
Okay. Sorry, I've got the agenda in front of me. I can't.
Yeah, she said hold your questions till later.
I can't tell who's talking. Okay, we're good. All right. So quickly, just wanted to go over a few items that we touched on last month. Program planner, which you can see there as the first agenda item. We have a QR code over here to the right, possibly to your left. If you scan that QR code, or if you use that bit.ly link, that takes you to a Google form. So if you are trying to get information to the PTO board in order to request funds, if you're trying to advertise for an event, if you're trying to put on an event, if you are trying to request volunteers, basically anything that you might need from the PTO, that is the fastest way to get that information to all of the board members at once. So we're trying to use that as a kind of a one-stop shop. So wanted to point that out. National Counselor Appreciation Week was the first week in February. And hopefully everyone saw the sign in front of the school. We also had a small lunch for the counseling staff, and want to thank the committee that helped put that together. Alexandra, I think, is en route to pick up her child, and so I'm not going to ask her to speak, but she is the one-person machine that does every single monthly teacher appreciation lunch, and she also did the counseling lunch. We also are in the process of doing a year-round Amazon wish list, which there's a link also in the agenda. If you click on that, you'll see that there are a bunch of kind of bathroom and not just bathroom items, but these are kind of like nicer items for all of the staff and faculty restrooms. What we started at the beginning of the year was to try to beautify all of the staff and faculty areas. And what we've done is put in little carts in all of those areas, common areas. And so we have used the PTO budget to stock them with some basic items, some nicer items than what comes, obviously from the district. And what's left are things on the wish list. So none of these things are must-haves. These are wish items. So if anyone wants to pick things off that wish list, this is going to be kind of a year-round thing. So that is there for anyone to look at. And then finally, our Valentine's Day campaign. That was a one-day campaign.
Valentine's Day was last week.
Can we hold our questions till the end, please? Or you can actually put the question in the chat. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that one.
Okay. So in one day, we were able to raise over $2,500, which is amazing. It was an amazing fundraising effort for just one day. So I want to thank all of the parents parents, family, friends, everyone who contributed to that. So we've got the original page that went out in order to ask for funds. We're going to be putting all of the, I think we might have to do something like what we do for the Friends and Family campaign, a scrolling marquee to thank all of the parents. So we're working on getting all of our returns. Our treasurer is traveling right now, so we don't have all of that information, but we're blown away by the response. Okay, so that's it since last month. Our secretary, Aparna, I believe, is here and is going to present the minutes from January.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, apologies. I was having some internet issues, but the minutes should be displayed from last month's meeting. You can also find the video for the PTO meetings, as well as the meeting minutes written or transcribed on the Vanguardian website. So I guess if everyone has had a chance to review or has any questions, we'll take them now. Otherwise, I would take a motion to approve just in the interest of time and that they're publicly all posted.
This is Susan Hawes. I'll move to approve.
Thank you. Could we have a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Mary. So the minutes are there and approved, I guess, for January. And please let me know if you have any questions. Oh, there's a poll as well. Okay, next.
Next on the agenda, I think that's our treasurer's report. Are we ready for that?
Let's see, we've got 19 people having voted, and then our 2 admins who can't vote. So that's, and I vote yes. And I believe Mary has voted yes as well. So and so I believe that's quorum. Okay. Okay. All right. And so we don't have our treasurer's report again because Mala is traveling. However, all of our budgetary reports are available on the website. So I'm not able to navigate from here, but if you go to vanguardian.org, which you can do so from the QR codes that are on the agenda. They are located there, and we will be updating from January to February, but the Valentine's Day campaign earned us, again, a little over $2,500. So we will be moving on to communications.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Maria. Good evening, everybody. So from communications and IT team, there are two things I want to talk about. Regarding communications, I know, parents prefer to get the updates through email or newsletter. I mean, as a parent, I prefer email updates because I check periodically and I can get to one single source to get that information. And the other avenue is social media. So we are there in both the places. But if you're a parent who prefers via email or newsletter, please make sure to sign up via membership toolkit. So that is the link, that is the QR code that you see here. You can take a picture and sign up, or you can go to vanguardian.org and join membership. If we are also very much active on Facebook and Instagram, and if you are a person who is more in social media and prefer to get updates there, please make sure you are in the, there are two pages. One is the PTO fan page and also the closed community group. And you can be part of that and you can ask any questions that you have there, and our teachers and staff are also there, and they will be, PTO is also there, and they will be helping to answer any questions you have. So whatever is the media that you use, please make sure you're part of it and sign up for that so that you don't miss any updates and any communication. So we try to send all the important communications like the PTO meeting, the college web series, and all those via email. But the reminders, we can't keep on sending all the email reminders. So reminders will be through social media group, or if you're part of the student WhatsApp group or Facebook group, they're also the parent parents are, what is that called? Class parents are posting there as well. So we are trying to reach you through whichever avenue we can so that you're informed about all the latest updates. From an IT perspective, one of the goals for us next year is to reduce the number of software and tools that we are using. We are primarily going to focus on membership toolkit for any calendars or any updates, newsletter, and everything. So we are trying to converge to a single tool so that we can reduce our expenses as well. So that is the other goal that we have for next year. So that's all I have. Back to you, Maria.
Thank you, Mary. I believe next we've got Gary, who's going to talk about volunteer and membership opportunities.
Yep. Hi. Hello, everybody. So we have had a busy start of the year, and we're about halfway through, but we also have half the year left, which means we still need a lot of volunteers for a lot of the fun activities that we have planned for the remaining part of the year. So if you do have time and the inclination, please go to vanguardian.org, check out all of our activities that we post out there, and then definitely sign up. So some of the things that we've been doing this year, thanks to all of the wonderful parents that have signed up and have committed their time and effort, we've brought to the rest of the parent community the college information Zoom sessions. And we had one earlier this year with Miss Galloway, and then we're actually talking about how to make that a program a little bit larger and encompass maybe additional audience in there. So we're talking about some more ideas on what are the types of things we can deliver to parents. But if you have specific ideas, please wait till the end of the meeting, and we're going to do breakout rooms where you can come into my breakout room and certainly help support us in whatever way. If you want to throw ideas your way, or you want to volunteer your time, all of that is appreciated. In addition to that, I also want to give a call out to the Teacher Appreciation Committee. And Alex, who leads that committee, is fabulous. As Maria called out earlier, we did do a celebration for the counselors, a counselor appreciation earlier this month, where we had some lunch brought in for them and did a few signs and really made them feel special and thank them for doing all of the wonderful work that they do for our kids. In addition to that, we also had several parents that volunteered for Miss Malmi's magnet tour walkthrough. So thank you for being part of the sales committee for the future parents. And then also thank you to the parents that volunteered for the Valentine's Day dance, especially the folks that took the graveyard shift and stayed late. I truly, truly appreciate that. So we've done quite a few things and we've had a lot of parents step up, but I do want to say that there is a lot coming. There is a huge spring bash that's coming later this year, and we do need a lot of people signed up for that. So if you're interested, definitely go to our Vanguardian page as well as our membership toolkit sign up page. And if you don't know where that is, ask for it in the chat. I will make sure that I can get you links to sign up for those activities. In addition to that, it's almost that time of year where we're starting to nominate for our board for the next year. And so without talking about it too much, if you as a parent are interested and you feel like you might have a little bit more time next year, please definitely start sending out emails either to me or anybody else on the board that you might know, and express your interest, ask questions, be curious about what it is that we do so that we can kind of help bring in more engaged parents to lead this cause. So we will be putting a nominating committee towards that effort that brings new parents in to the board and helps people understand what it is we do. So there is a call out right now for the nominating committee, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in my breakout session as well. Thank you. Over to you, Mary, or Maria, sorry.
Thank you. So Jackie Rincon is our special events VP, but she's also still wearing a lot of hats for a lot of other committees. So we won't ask her to talk about everything, but Jackie, if you're here.
Yes, I am. Thank you so much, Maria. So I would quickly just want to ask parents or any kind of admin or staff on the call tonight, if you have any ideas of student appreciation events that we can do for them. I know most of you know that in October we had one scheduled, but we had to reschedule it because of the weather and the Astros. So I'm hoping, before the end of the year, we can get something fun for the kids, whether it be a movie night or if we did a field day of something. If you have any ideas, please come and join my breakout room after our meeting. And you can always reach me at specialevents@cvhspto.org. Thank you.
Allison Moorhead is our committee chair for Crash Bash, which is our spring event. We keep calling it a spring gala. It's not a gala. No one's buying a formal. I mean, you can wear a formal if you want. I think it'd be fun. But the event is going to be emphasis on fun and less on having to get dressed up. So Allison is here to tell us about that.
Yes, we would actually prefer for you to wear an outfit from home and save your money to put in the Carnegie pot. The event, the Crash Bash is April 30th from 5:30 to 8:30 at the Flight Club, which is a darts place on Taft. It's a kind of a cool bar restaurant place that has darts. There will be an auction, and we're looking for people to underwrite elements of the evening, auction items, and then of course to buy tickets. And you can buy tickets to sponsor a teacher or staff member to come, and it's adults only, so it's fun. Thanks. And I will have a breakout session to talk more about volunteers. Thank you.
Susan is going to give us our FACE update.
Okay. I am our FACE rep, that's Family and Community Engagement, which is one of our liaisons with the district. And they are inviting us to a family-friendly walkthrough on the morning of February 28th. So right after drop-off, I promise you we will have coffee. And the way this goes is Ms. Cruz, our liaison with the district, will be there. And what she wants to do is have everybody literally walk through Carnegie and give her some written feedback on what you see. Like, is there anything, and we have kind of an advantage because our building is just a little over 10 years old. But is there anything that you think could be improved? Is there anything that you're really happy about? So they want to know what parents see when they walk through the school. I'd also, this is not FACE, but I would also like to draw everybody's attention to, you've probably got some phone calls about this. I know I have, is our Board of Trustees is having some goal meetings where they want community feedback. I don't know exactly what their agenda for that is, but it is always useful and worthwhile for us to remind our trustees that Carnegie serves students from every trustee district. So when you hear about those meetings, if you have time, please do go. And that's what I've got to say, and we can go on with the meeting.
Thank you, Susan. I also want to point out that Susan Hawes, as our past president, and Allison Moorhead, who is a committee chair, but she's also president of the PTO at Pershing, both represented us wonderfully, beautifully at the PTO Expo that HIC had a couple of weekends ago. Has it been 2 weekends? I don't know. My days run together. Anyways, several of us in parent organization leadership attended, and they both were part of conducting their own seminars. And I thank both of them for representing our school. So. Senior events. Jamie Turner is our senior parent and former board member. She very smartly did not do both at the same time. I did that last year. I almost died or killed someone. And so Jamie's going to give us an update on senior events.
Thank you, Maria. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Jamie Turner. I am the senior parent for our beautiful senior class this year. I wanted to just give you a few updates. I'm not going to tell you everything, because the first thing I want to ask of you is whether you are a senior parent or you have a senior coming, which is true for everyone on the line. I would love to speak with you before you actually become a senior parent, so that maybe I can share some things about what you have to look forward to as it pertains to events when your child becomes a senior. There is an opportunity for all of us to participate in what's needed for the senior events, and the seniors would appreciate it. So for those parents that are not yet senior parents, you could be very useful in everything that goes on with senior events. For those parents that are seniors, I know you have a lot on your plate, but we want to send our seniors out beautifully. So please, I'm going to put my email in the chat, seniorparent@cvhs.org, and I'm going to hit send. There it is. Please write it down. Reach out to me, and let's talk about how either you can shadow in one of the events just so you can see what is to come, or actually get involved. That's the first thing I have for you. The second thing I have for you is we have our first event coming up. It is the senior brunch. It is March 1st. It is going to take place at Carnegie, and there are going to be food, games, and music. I'm not going to give you any more details because I'm going to send you out an email and I want you to read it. So The senior brunch is March 1st. It is during advocacy and lunch. That is our first event for the series of events for our seniors. And when you receive the email, which you will in the morning, please read it because there is a lot more in store. That is all I have for you. Thank you.
So that was March 1st for the brunch, correct?
March 1st, yes, and that's a Wednesday.
Okay. And now we have State of the School for Principal Moss.
All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. It looks like we have 30 some, maybe 36 people on the line. So we appreciate you taking time out of your schedules to join us. I'm sure you all are probably quite well aware Monday is a holiday for President's Day for students. Staff will have a teacher service day. Also upcoming a week from tomorrow on Friday, February 24th. That marks the end of cycle 4. And then a week from then on March 3rd, report cards will be distributed. So please keep those dates in mind. Let me thank the PTO for everything that you all do to help support not just your students, but faculty, staff, administration, and our school program all together. And by all means, we could not do all of what we do without you. So we really appreciate all your participation. I also want to start with another piece of great news. You may have heard that as of Sunday, the organization Children at Risk did its annual rankings of best schools. And in the high school category, guess who was number 1? So Carnegie is very thrilled. We were happy to host the press, not town hall meeting, but press release on Monday morning. And, you know, it's such a great tribute to all of us, the key stakeholders that come together for the overall great benefit of our students. So it's cause for celebration. And then Tuesday, we had our Valentine's pep rally. And I mentioned to students that their prize for that is that they'll have Monday off. So that was a little joke, but we do want to celebrate with, at the very least, a pizza party. So our secretary is reaching out to vendors and trying to get a good deal so that we can have a school-wide celebration. Now, this report is accurate as of last year and previous year's data. So it really applies to our sophomores, juniors, and seniors, but we're going to let the freshmen join in on the fun too. And I think it's good to kind of set certain parameters and let current freshmen and then future students know that their positive efforts can yield some great results. And so we're very proud to be ranked number 1 by this organization. Let's see. I wanted to mention a little bit about the budget. Just recently, I received information that applies to our current school year. About this time last year, principals were asked to make a projection in regards to anticipated enrollment. So last year, I projected about 822 students. What the district does, it gives it at least a full 6-week period. And they look at enrollment on a specific date, which is usually the last Friday in October. They call that the snapshot date. And on that date, our enrollment was actually 841. So we were 19 students over my projection, which meant that in January, just last month, we received additional funding for those 19 students. And that equates to about $43,000. Now, as it is now, we are allocating funds towards student needs and classroom needs. Teachers are submitting requisitions for various different things. Of course, the PTO also has an allocation for teachers. And it seems like teachers either have what they need or they're gathering additional materials for not just the spring semester, but also for the future for next year. One of the big ticket items that we really do need to address is the irrigation system, which there are three components of the building. There's the entire perimeter, at the very least, the very front of the building between the sidewalk and the curb. We have shrubbery that has, most of it has died off. Number one, because of the lack of the water with the irrigation system that is broken. And then, of course, the last big freeze that we have. I decided not to take out those dead plants yet because I want to get the irrigation system fixed first. I'm afraid that if we take it out, it may even look worse. But we want to get the irrigation fixed, and then actually, before we do any kind of landscaping or new installments. There's also the athletic fields that ties into that irrigation system, as well as the green roof, which is pretty much above our English wing. We have a class called Scientific Research and Design. The kids call it wildlife for short. And there are different groups within the wildlife classroom that work on various components of the school. And irrigation is going to be a critical factor for at least two of those three groups. So that is something that we are investigating. And I've gotten some good feedback from some of our parents in regards to potential vendors or companies that might become an HISD vendor so that we can utilize them in regards to that endeavor. The other thing is possibly updating our sound system in the gym. And I know that for this past Valentine's dance, I think Mr. Garner was able to secure or rent a sound system. We would actually like to have something that's permanent in the gym and something that is of quality. So anyway, those are two of the bigger items that we will possibly use part of that $43,000 that we recently acquired. We'll probably try to address those projects. Also, in terms of next year, we don't have any solid figures just yet, but central office has informed us that we are running a serious deficit that may cause a reduction in our PUA or per pupil unit allocation. So we will be working throughout the month of March in order to figure out what are some of the cuts that can happen, not only in HISD schools, but also in central administration. What they're telling us now is that we may see at the most a 5% decrease in our general funding, which is where we receive the most of our funding. So we're trying to put together some information on how exactly that may impact schools and for us, particularly Carnegie. There are some things that we can do now that may somewhat try to offset some of what may happen next year. And that is, we have the opportunity to increase our enrollment. I really like that this year we were balanced for the most part, 200 students divided equally, or 200 students per grade level. But if we have to intake more students into the 9th grade and even some of our 10th grade applicants, then that is what we'll do. But we won't know whether or not we have to do that until sometime probably after spring break. Another thing that we can do now is make every effort to increase our daily attendance. So typically the attendance for Carnegie runs about 97 or 98%, which is great. And I love that. I'm not sure that everybody knows that the attendance percentage for this year is part of the equation for the funding that we will receive the following year. So if we can increase our attendance to make sure that it's at least 98 or even higher, then that would benefit us with additional dollars because attendance is a part of the equation for our funding for the following year. So for next year. All right, so hopefully I appeased everybody with the good news. Now we're going to try to tackle the attendance issue, which is district-wide. Please keep that in mind. For multiple years, HISD has not appropriately interpreted state law. So it came to a big surprise district-wide. And unfortunately, some things is not isolated to Carnegie. So how should I say this? It is the state, when we talk about NGs, and NG stands for no grade and the possible denial of credit. That is not anything that comes from the campus. It doesn't come from the district. It actually comes from the state. So the state monitors attendance, and with our better understanding of state law, it has affected a little bit over 11% of our Carnegie population. So Mr. Garner and I are going to provide some additional information and maybe field some of the questions. I want to preface actually his part of the presentation by saying if your students received an asterisk on the report card, the asterisk pretty much serves as a warning that the student is getting close to the limit on the number of absences, both excused and unexcused. The state looks at both excused and unexcused absences in its formula. The NG, once again, stands for no grade, and that means that the student would be denied credit for that particular course. Let me point out on our school website, CarnegieVanguard.com, on the left side of the page under helpful links, there is a link for attendance, and there you can find information regarding the state law regarding compulsory attendance, the 90% rule, so on and so forth. But specifically, we are going to discuss, or actually Mr. Garner is going to start discussing specific issues to Carnegie, and then we'll close with some resolutions so that students can recoup their credit, receive their credit, have that placed on their transcript, and we'll be all good. All right, so at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Garner.
Good evening, folks. I want to start off with this subject and pretty much say that we are going to handle this in the most simplest, straightforward way so that parents and students are impacted to a minimum. So the 90% rule is what we're talking about. And as Mr. Moss pointed out, the 90% rule seems to have been misinterpreted by the district for a while now. And they've just this year realized that the district should have been counting excused absences in the calculation of those who should receive an NG. And so, excuse me?
I think unexcused.
Unexcused and excused.
Correct.
Yeah, unexcused and excused. So to our all-out surprise, beginning of this school year, we were told that excused absences would be counted also into this calculation, the NG. And so about 30 some odd of our students received NGs on their semester report cards. Again, these were students who had been absent, unexcused or excused, for a minimum of 8 or more days. And so that was like 36 students, I want to say. But then we received contact from our superiors that said that another error was made. And this one was related to each campus having a different type of schedule. Our campus has a modified block schedule, So students do not meet each class every day. On a normal week, our students see each teacher, each class 4 times. But the calculations for the original NGs was based on 5 times. They assumed that all the schools and all the students met each teacher every day. And so that was a major error. And so we were then directed to contact all parents and students. Or first, let me back up. First, we were told to calculate exactly how many times our students would actually saw or sat in their class each week and each day for the semester, and then from there determine what was 10% of that, and then contact every parent and student of kids who were absent, excused and unexcused, for that 10% number. And for us, it was 58 because we have a modified block schedule. So not only did we have already contacted, or the NGs were already placed on that first batch of students who had been absent 8 or more based on the initial tabulation that the district came up with. The second wave of students, we had to manually determine, come up with this formula, and we did the math, and it was 58 days. So therefore, any student who had 6 or more absences received a phone call and a certified letter. Though unlike the first group, an NG didn't pop up on the report cards for the second group of students. But we were still told, directed to contact those parents and students to tell them that they received an NG. The fact remains, though, the fact is that no NG actually appeared. I think it's more so just in case the district pushes some button and NGs appear, that we have paperwork for all these parents or students so that we can quickly adjust that, remove the NGs. From the beginning, the first thing I said when I started this was that we at Carnegie are going to try our best to make this as painless as possible. What we do need is the paperwork, the formality. We need the paperwork. We need the appeal for the credit. And if that's submitted, we have the power to simply have that document and then go and make the manual change of the NG if there's an NG that's there, or if it's a potential NG pops up later on, we have documentation that the parent appealed and we okayed the appeal, and so we can change that back to the grade. So for all students who received any type of contact, either the initial contact based on the 8 NG, you actually received an NG on your report card. And for those students who received a phone call or received a certified mail, if your absences were excused, if they were excused, all we need is the paperwork. All we need is the application for the credit appeal application, and then we will manage it from that point on. Now, for those who do have unexcused absences, we are going to require those students to attend community service or do some community service hours for us. And so that's how we're going to manage that. That's how we've always done in the past with community service hours, when we were just looking at students who had unexcused absences and they crossed over that 90% threshold. We would assign those students community service to regain. But since the parents who submitted letters, notes, excuse notes, nothing, they did not change. The system changed on them, so we don't think that they should have to jump over any unnecessary hoops rather, other than just sending us that paperwork, that documentation, so that we could have some documentation that could allow us to make the appropriate adjustments to the student's grade book or grade and transcript. Any questions?
So
There were a
yeah,
couple questions.
Yeah,
in the
there's some
chat.
questions in the chat.
Oh, go to the chat.
so I'll start with one question.
Okay.
So when it comes to something that I think we have all experienced, students that are late,
Okay.
and so we don't write them an excuse, and they tip over into that becoming absent for that one class.
Okay.
So advocacy being one, because it's so short on some days. What are we doing about things like that? Because obviously we're
Okay. Well, when so if a student is tardy, a third of class. So if an advocacy is generally 30 minutes long. So if a kid is 10 minutes late, that kid is considered absent for that period, for that advocacy. It's the same work. It works that way for all the other periods too. A 45-minute period, a third would be 15 minutes. If the kid is 15 minutes late, that kid is considered absent. The 90-minute periods, it would be 30 minutes. If the kid is 30 minutes late, that's considered absent. And that's pretty much TEA. You know, if you 1/3 absent, you're considered absent for that particular time period. Before that, it's tardy. But if you miss a third, it is considered an absence. And that would be generally a unexcused absence.
okay. And then same example, if they're I'm sorry, Principal Moss, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say the good thing about advocacy is, and to be honest with you, advocacy was intentionally placed at the top of the day because we know we have traffic issues, and many times even the HISD buses were arriving late. The good thing about it, though, is that if a student is marked absent for advocacy, there is no class for them to lose credit.
Yeah.
Okay, that I had asked that, and I was, I think, told by someone incorrectly that they had to have credit for that class. I was like, it's not a class, but okay, that doesn't matter. Good to know. And if they are tardy because of an illness, but we never gave them a note, that 3-day rule, obviously in many cases we're way beyond the 3 days. Is that being waived in this case? Are we submitting paperwork this far out, or are they unexcused?
So you're saying go, Mr. Moss.
We've had instances where, yes, unfortunately, parents have been submitting documents that are months late. Mr. Garner is much more lenient than I. Much. Capital M, capital U, capital C, capital H. But that's why we emphasize this 3-day rule about, submitting notes within 3 days upon return to school. But yes, we are accepting that, and administration is reviewing those documents, and especially if there is a physician's note that would help excuse the absences as medical.
Okay.
May I interrupt, Mr. Moss? Good evening, everyone. I am Claudia Alvarenga, I'm the attendance person. I think the question that she was trying to say, and I want to make sure we're all on the same page, is let's say if a parent is past due 2 weeks, they forgot to turn in a note. I guess what she's asking is, are we still going to input it in the system and accept it and excuse the absent after it's been past more than 3 days?
I
Correct.
think Mr. Mouse has addressed that. I think the general, if it's a doctor's note, yes. If it's just it's a parent note, generally, no.
Oh, so we're okay. So no, we're not.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if it's a doctor's note, You know, if it was something, you know, you're at a meeting or some formal situation, an appointment, or maybe the student has a record of going to get their driver's license or something like that. That's one thing. But if it's just if the parent just sitting and turning a note, that's generally would be not accepted.
Okay. All
I
right.
see a
we
few
have,
hands up.
yeah, we have several hands up. Okay. Aaliyah.
Hi, I'm sorry. Hi. Yes, I had a question. So my kid had to be picked up from the main office, and I was running late. So he didn't know he had to go to his class instead of waiting for me in the office. So I picked him up, took him to doctor's appointment. We brought a note stating that he was in the doctor's office. But because the main office told the teacher that he was in the main office, the teacher said that they're unexcused absent. So my question is, does the doctor's note need to have the time on it to say that he was actually absent during that period?
I'm not certain that we have to be that specific.
Yeah.
And if our front
So he
desk
should not be unexcused, right? Like he just waited for me because I was stuck in traffic, and I was supposed to pick him up at 1 and I was there at 1:10. And instead of being in his class, he was in the main office. And he had exactly the same situation the day before because it was the retainer issue and it took 2 days. He did not get an unexcused absence, but because the office saw him the next day, he got an unexcused absence. So I'm just curious, do we need to bring separate notes to show the times, or what does it have to do with like waiting for a parent who's stuck in traffic?
So let me be clear, because I want to be, oh, I'm sorry. I just want to be clear about the scenario.
Go ahead.
Go, Mr. Mock.
I need to say this before I forget.
Go,
I'm
go,
getting
go,
old.
go.
If we have our nurse or our front desk personnel that can vouch for the student that they were waiting to be picked up because of an illness, then by all means, they're be considered excused as opposed to unexcused. Mr. Garner?
Yeah, I agree. I just think, you need to further understand exactly what's going on. If the kid is in the front desk waiting on their parent.
Yes, that's what he was doing.
That shouldn't be that shouldn't be marked an unexcused absence because
exactly. So he was waiting in the main office. I picked him up 10 minutes late, and I brought him back with the note from the dental office, and he was marked absent, unexcused, because the main office told the teacher. That's my understanding, that he was in the main office instead of being in the class, and he did not know he had to be in the class, and he did not know I'm running late.
Aaliyah, I think Mr. Garner saying you can contact him after and get it resolved.
Okay.
So if we can move on, we had Javier, who has, go ahead, Javier.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Hey, so I wanted to just talk at a high level about this this sort of attendance policy. And by the way, Mr. Garner, Mr. Moss, congratulations on the #1. And I'm thrilled that Sophie is still at Carnegie. Everything you guys do for her, right? She's managing to stay and make it through. But my daughter we got caught up in this 90%, kind of thing. And it was sort of counterintuitive to me that my kid was legitimately sick for a full week. I mean, she was down and out, cold out, And so, when we got the letter that said, these absences include excused and unexcused absences, that seemed counterintuitive to me, because it seemed like we're actually incentivizing kids, who are very sick to go to school. And since then, Mr. Garner's resolved this for us, on our end, and we really appreciate it, everything you've done. But I want to look. I actually went to the state's website and read the actual statute, the rule, and that kind of thing. And I believe that one of the things that may be weird, I believe if this is HISD's policy, I think they got it wrong, right? Because I actually went and read it, and it's certainly the section that you referred to absolutely says the student has to be in attendance for at least 90% of the days in the class, right? But then it goes on, and then there's a section just directly beneath that, a subsection that says that certain, and I'm not going to kind of read the section and the sub bullet and the Romanette and all that stuff, but it says that certain types of absences may not be considered when you're calculating this 90% rule. And then if you go and say, okay, what type of absence that, you go down and look in another section, it says an absence from a serious illness. And if the student has a particular note, and they do prescribe a relatively fancy kind of note from the physician saying that, having to have these key words, then these illnesses should not be counted. It is plain on the nose in your face when you read the rule. I just don't think that HISD read the rule. And I think as it's being interpreted, we're encouraging sick kids to go to school. And I think at the highest level, that's probably the most important thing we get out of this right now. And I don't know who we talk to get it fixed, but somebody needs to talk to somebody to make sure that we're not encouraging sick kids to go to school. Yeah. That's was my thought on this.
Well, I certainly agree. I'm sorry.
No,
Oh,
no, I
Mr.
was just going to say, if I know there's a lot in the chat, but Susan Hawes did put the next trustee town hall Monday, February 20th. And I know that's hard. A lot of us, we have other obligations, and with traffic, it's hard to get anywhere at 5:30. But there are some town halls, and I think a lot of us feel this way. And Javier, you're not the only person who has said exactly that they've gone in and looked at the rules and feel like they got it wrong. So I think that's an excellent point.
You can also, I'm sorry for stepping on your toe there, Maria. You can also just write to your trustee or all the trustees about this subject. There is a board tag on the district website, and they have publicly available emails.
Okay, I was just, thinking that all this stuff gets handled by maybe the top guys at the schools who kind of, can understand this stuff and know someone to talk to. But certainly I'd be happy to do that if.
Yep. Good point, Javier.
Right.
Mr. Gardner or Mr. Moss, if you have a response, or we can move on to the next question.
I say, Mr. Vega, I cannot disagree with you.
That's
I cannot disagree with anything that you said. I do know that HISD has contingent plans for students who have chronic illnesses or long-term or ongoing illnesses. And so we certainly do understand that. And I know everybody wants to keep their students safe, secure, and healthy. But I think there's a little bit of gray area. We do not want students to come to school sick. So I definitely need to say that.
Yeah. And I can add to that too. I stay in Fort Bend, and my kids attend Fort Bend, and they have been dealing with the 90% rule for a long time. And there's a substantial amount of campus level discretion on how to address those type of situations when the kids are 90% rule, but the kids are all excused absences. It's pretty much a formality that the school and the campus gets rid of the NGs.
Right.
It's pretty much a formality.
Right. Well, I appreciate it. And for everyone's information, I wrote this big long email to Mr. Moss, Mr. Garner, and they responded, hey, look, just fill out the form. And so I filled out the form, turned it in. I'm going to go by the process, but I think we saved probably a lot of time. And also, we don't want a bunch of kids in summer school, based on some crazy rule that is absolutely miswritten. That's a huge waste of resources. We can buy bushes with that. All right. I'm off.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going to try to focus in on, instead of our specific, because I know we all have specifics, but more global questions. So Elena Coates, got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, this relates because I try to make appointments for my child so that he misses as little school as possible. And I made the mistake of making an appointment for him at 4 o'clock with the orthodontist
6 months ahead of time, and I can't get them out of school after 3:30. And so I'm wondering, is that Carnegie's policy or is that HISD's policy? I'm not sure. But the office said we can't release any student after 3:30. And so I'm thinking, okay, so I need to leave work and my kid needs to miss probably 2 classes so that I can make an appointment for him in the middle of the day or in the morning. Like I'm trying to have him miss as little school as possible. So I don't know who's responsible for that, but I'm thinking there might be a way that's easier if you have a note or some proof or something that you are actually taking him to an appointment and not just trying to get him out of school because I want him to miss less, just saying.
And we appreciate that. Thank you for your question. I know that, I don't know if it's probably not a district policy, but I know several schools have that policy because we're trying to protect the instructional time without interruption. And then of course, now with the 90% rule, it helps to protect the student from being denied credit because the student is out more than 2/3 of the time that the class is held. I understand that some appointments are on a consistent basis. I don't know if there is the possibility of moving it around. I probably shouldn't even say that because I know parents have schedules too, but it is something that we'll probably need to discuss going forward now that there is a different interpretation of the 90% rule. I don't know if Mr. Garner wants to comment on that.
Yeah, well, the
Principal Moss.
upshot of it was that we were late and we had to make an additional appointment. So I'm having to take him out for 2 days instead of 1. So it just kind of snowballed and it was all out of an attempt to try to miss as little school as possible. So
Miss-
I'm not sure.
Moss?
I believe that the issue is that we can't take them out right before school ends. We have to take them out actually earlier, so they miss more.
Yeah, that is the issue.
I think that it's to avoid picking kids up right when school's letting out, so that we're not interrupting that process of when school's letting out. I imagine that's why the rule exists, but it is a problem because if we're trying to make it so that the kids are missing as little class as possible, then we have to back up the appointment, excessively. So I believe
So let me
that's the
interrupt.
question.
Let me interrupt here. So when students are leaving after
Is that Ms.
3:30.
Alvarenga? It just says
Yes,
iPhone.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so a lot of times, if this is convenient for the parents, I have a lot of my parents that email me. I'm taking my students to the appointment. So what I do is I send them a slip and they walk out at 3. Let's say, I'm just giving you an example. Let's say you're picking up your student. You send me, hey, I'm having a doctor's appointment. I need to pick up the student at 3:45. I usually send a slip and the student is ready to go out. They just show it to the teacher and they walk out to the front of the building.
Well,
The
that's
reason
exactly
why-
what I did. And I was told I couldn't take my student away from school. And so I had to sit and wait for him to be dismissed. And we were late for
Okay,
our appointment. And he missed another day of school because I had to take him for a second appointment. So there,
So usually if you send me an email.
I
go-
did.
Send me the
I did.
email and then we'll send the student out. I don't know what happened after 3:30. I can't think of it right now.
No, it's
But
fine. I
the
mean,
reason-
but I did, and that's why, because I know that it's hard to get a kid out of school and I know we don't want him to miss class. But that's why I went out of my way to send an email and say, I'm picking up my kid at this time. And I was just told, you just have to wait until you're dismissed. And so, and then it just kind of snowballed into missing a lot of class. And I really don't want him to miss class because he's a freshman,
Right.
struggling, and I want him to be sitting in that chair. And I just don't want
Right.
to make it worse than it
Right.
needs to be.
Can I address
Right.
that, Ms. Alvarenga? Let me handle this. Let
Yes,
me
sir.
address this here. So I get it. And I understand where you're coming from, Mom. So I think the ideal of the policy was that at one point we had, it's been years ago, it's been years that we had some parents coming to pulling their kids out of class to beat traffic. and these type of things here. And so that's what I think that's like where it comes from. But certainly, if you have an appointment and there's, legitimate doctor's appointment, you can come get your child when you want to get your child, and if that's the last few minutes of school, that's not a problem. I think it becomes a issue if it becomes habitual. But then you said that, you might be scheduling these appointments at this point, weekly or periodically. So that's when I think administrator needs to be involved and be made aware of it, and then we could certainly okay it each time.
Yeah, thank you. It was a little odd to be told I couldn't take my kid
Certainly.
to scheduled
Certainly.
appointment. So yeah, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah.
that. I feel like clarifying this policy will be really helpful.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
And now with this new emphasis on compulsory attendance and 90% rule, that is something that we definitely need to have additional conversations about, and maybe change that policy or make sure that parents know they can notify us in advance and the student knows the exact time to leave out of class without necessarily interrupting the learning for others.
Absolutely.
Oh, and let me confirm, will we have a breakout room specifically for attendance?
We absolutely can if you're willing to stay.
Okay. Or I didn't know, I didn't know if there was another component of the meeting, or we can certainly continue here if.
I wasn't going to assume that you were going to stay any later. So, but I'm certain people would appreciate it.
We do have a couple questions in the chat that haven't been addressed. If we could take a quick look at those. There's somebody's asking, do those asterisks expire or do they have to be removed?
I could address that. The asterisks are simple warnings, and they appear for after each cycle or on each cycle grade. So if a student, let's say one cycle has 25 days. So if that student missed 2.5 days, that student over 2.5, 3 days, the student would get an asterisk, and it's kind of a warning. For cycle 1, you get an asterisk. For cycle 2, you get an asterisk. But it's a chance that for cycle 3, you don't miss 10%. And so no NG pops up. The asterisks are just warnings. The NG is the one that's the problem. And the asterisk is just trying to let you know that each cycle your student is has crossed the threshold of 10% of days absent for this particular cycle. But they stay and they don't really have an impact other than if they convert to an NG for the semester grade. So just see those as warnings. And the NG is where the grade is in jeopardy when the NG pops up.
That was my question, Allison.
Okay.
And so with the asterisk, just as a warning, I get that. And then so semesters aren't end of times, right? Like after fall semester and then we don't start again in spring semester.
It's a whole new cycle. A whole new semester. They're independent of one another. So because credit is given by semester, so NGs are doled out by semester.
So I
start all over?
So I start with fresh asterisks.
Yes, you start. Yeah, we're back at 0. Yes.
Okay. So, I don't want to get into specifics, but I got a letter. I'll email you. I got a letter with all. It doesn't matter, but I just didn't know if it was a cumulative, because he takes geometry all year. But that's not what you're saying, or it is.
No, it's each semester. No, it's each semester. So geometry A is independent of geometry B.
Beautiful. Thank you. That answers that question. I'll email about my letter that they want to kill me with. Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Moorhead, this is something that, we discovered. If it wasn't last week, it was at the tail end of the week prior. For the fall semester, PE for our freshmen also has a component of health. So PE PE and health are really two different classes, but because they have so much in common, we offer both of those classes within one class period. If a student had, let's say, more than 4 absences in PE, but also 4 absences that same period with health, unfortunately, that totaled to 8. So that was something new that was brought to our attention. However, in the spring semester, that will not affect freshmen because health is only 1 semester, but PE is full year. Another thing we discovered is that for some of our upperclassmen, AP Computer Science is very similar. Students receive 2 types of credit for AP Computer Science. They get the math credit for that, and they also get a credit for something that's called LOTE, L-O-T-E, which stands for Languages Other Than English. So consider AP Computer Science having its own language, so to speak. Students receive double credit, but if they have more than 4 absences, that accumulates to 8 or more. So that is the one course that those students need to really monitor in regards to their absences for the entire year.
But
probably a small percentage of our students kind of fall in that category, but I just wanted to point that out.
Was my child the PE health case study with his 10 absences? Just curious. Yeah.
I'm not sure if but you know, that certain, once that's discovered, that could be resolved. That shouldn't count. It shouldn't count that way. It's by period, and just for those particular classes, attendance is taken twice for the same time period, and that shouldn't. So it just takes scrutiny. It takes us to look at the individual students' attendance to determine, you know, what's going on here. But when the reports that run don't discern that, though. The reports, they don't discern that. But if we examine the individual student's record, we could see that, you know, this is what's going on.
There's a few more questions in the chat, and then I do see one hand raised. Okay, Rema, do you want to ask your question?
Good evening, everyone. My son, my question is on the unexcused notes. My son has a medical condition that the doctors have given an action plan that he has to follow before he comes to the to see them. So if he doesn't go, let's say he stays home for 3 days without going to see the doctors, that means he won't get a medical excuse note to bring to the school. So what does he have to do, or what do we have to do? Do we have to go to the doctor's office just to get the notes, or what do we do to be marked as excuse? No, I mean absence.
Okay, so there's a medical excuse, and then there's just excuse.
It's he has a medical condition like asthma, and then they've given him action plan that he has to follow. Sometimes it takes 3 days before he gets better. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we have to go to urgent care. But the doctors are saying that he has to follow all those steps before he can come to the hospital. So okay. My question is, because they want excuse note, he has to come to school with a note before he can mark on like unexcused absence. And my question is, do we have to go to the doctor's office, let's say after 3 days, and he has to come to school for the 4th day, in order to get the present the excuse notes? Do we have to go to the doctor's office to get that, or how do we? I mean, the school has to.
No, excuse note. A parent can write an excuse note, and that could be excused. Now, if you wanted to be a medical excuse, the student has to attend school for a portion of that day. And a medical excuse is coded completely different from a general excuse. A medical excuse is recorded MD, I believe, MD, and it doesn't show up as an absence at all. But that's a student who has come to school and left school for an appointment. those become MDs. But if the student did not appear at school at all, and even if the student goes to the doctor but didn't come to school, and you present a note, that still would just be excused, not an MD. It'd just be excused. And so it'd be no different than if you just wrote your child a note, my child is ill, so they're staying home. They're the same.
No, what I'm saying is that he goes to the doctors have given him an action plan. He has an asthma, and then they're giving him action plan to follow. He has some medication that he has to take until it goes down. If he doesn't for certain days, then he had to come to the go to urgent care or come to see the doctor.
It would
So
still
that's
be. It would still just be an excuse. It was just either you don't have to bring a doctor's note. Your note would do the same as a doctor's note. It would make it excused.
Okay, I'm saying that because my son has been going through this same situation. Like we got a letter for that we submitted a note, but he was still marked absent and all that. That is why I have to ask that question.
Okay.
That we have to go to the doctor because it's medically excused when he's sick and doesn't come to school at all. And we follow the action plan that the doctors have given him. Do we have to have something on his file that he maybe has medical condition that sometimes when it happens, that doesn't mean necessarily that he will get a note from the doctor on those periods?
No, what I'm trying to say here is that for it to be, no matter what the situation is, and with at least the situation you're describing, if the student misses the whole day, it's either going to be marked excused or unexcused. Your note that a parent writes or a note that the doctor supplies will still just result in it being excused.
Okay.
If you go to the PTO website under parental resources, the landing page at the bottom, we have a lot of, this is all from the Carnegie website. I just steal everything basically. And this is what Ms. Alvarenga has posted. And this is her email, her phone number, if you have questions. And then if you click here, it will pull up the parental excuse note. It took me 4 years to find this, by the way. I used to handwrite these. I do not anymore. So what I hear Mr. Gardner saying is, if you do this in a timely manner within 3 days of your kids missing school, then it's excused.
Yes.
So you just have to, explain why they're gone. If not, they are truant.
I think we did that. We've done that.
So in the interest of time, can we table this? And okay, I think we can take it that Mr. Gardner, you might be the point of contact
Certainly.
for any parents that have additional questions about their particular cases and how they can resolve some of these issues.
Certainly.
Thank you.
There was just one last question in the chat, and it actually was talking about how parents that were in the second group you mentioned, how do they know that they were affected?
If they know they were affected, if they received a call or certified letter, they were impacted. Now there were some students, parents who received that call in error because of the double block classes. Like some of those parents, and they reached out to me, and some of those parents have, and I've let them know that, well, your kid was in PE and health and it counted double, so please disregard the message. Or your kid was in AP computer science and it counts twice, so disregard the message. So there were a few like that, but if you didn't receive a phone call or a certified letter, you're good, no problem.
Okay, and just to be clear, the final calculation puts us at 6 days, or is it 5 days?
It's 6.
6 days.
6 days.
And
That was for last semester. Now this semester, see, the system is not doing this part here. So that's part of the major problem with it, with the district here, that each campus has their own individualized schedule. And so it's up for each campus to figure it out individually for their campus and see exactly how many days that each class is offered. And so we're in the process of doing that, because also we got AP tests, we have a bunch of different types of schedules, and so we got to do all the math. But generally speaking, the spring semester is always a little longer. So in the fall, if it was 6 days, I would think it's probably going to be like 7 days this time around,
or possibly 8.
Yeah, possibly. So yeah, we got to do the math on that. Know exactly how many.
So is it fair to say if there are any parents here concerned about their kids with absences more than 6 days, they can contact you and figure out how to resolve?
Yes, and this is the simple thing. If the vast majority of your absences are excused, meaning you turned in notes within 3 days, we're gonna expedite that process as fast as possible. We just need documented paperwork, but that's that. So if it's excused, those absences are excused, we're gonna make it move pretty quickly.
I just briefly saw one of the questions about the final exam schedule, and I thought that was already posted. I'm looking on the website now, but I will say this. Last day of the semester are underclassmen final. So that's for grades 9, 10, and 11. For the last school year, we've offered senior finals a week prior to that to make sure that we have met the needs of our seniors, needs the district and the state, and they are to graduate. Because graduation falls on, I believe it's May 30th, I do not believe, well, let me say this. I'll need to confirm whether or not seniors have to appear on campus in the morning on May 31st. I do need to get clarity on that. However, I believe senior sunset is scheduled for that day. And of course, they would love the camaraderie of all their classmates to attend that.
Thank you, Maria. Back to you.
Okay.
There's a
Right.
question about the number of days. I believe there are either 87 or 88 days for the second semester, but that would be appropriate for schools that have a traditional schedule. They go to every class every day. Because we have 2 days of our block schedule is going to be shorter than that 87 or 88. So we'll still need to do that calculation.
We have one more question from the chat that is applicable to everyone, and that is, does this, or how does this no absences change the policy for being exempt from final exams?
That's a great question. I don't know that we've had a discussion about that just yet.
No, we haven't. I know Miss Matsu has fielded a couple of questions, and the two of us have like, okay, we need to sit down and talk about this and how we want to deal with that. So no, we have not come to any, haven't had a discussion about the impact this is going to have on exemptions.
Okay. And then the last chat question that I see, I said that was the last, but Mr. Moss knows that I've always got one more thing after I say last. Will a student get the confirmation that their NG has been removed from the school or from whoever is responsible for it?
That's me. Yes. I will email yes.
Okay, thank you.
So one thing that I do want to mention, just to kind of ease any concerns or fears, a lot of our students who found themselves in this situation, they are just past the thresholds. So we have very few students that would be in a more extreme kind of situation. But in terms of resolution, students who fall within the 10 to 25% situation and are forced to submit an appeal, the district has come up with a plan. Principals have incorporated this into a plan. And I'll just say, for example, those students who are in the 10 to 25% situation, they have to complete 2 hours in some form or fashion. Because the majority of or because we have the 100 community service hours as part of our program, a lot of our students may have already obtained their 2 hours in fulfilling that makeup, so to speak. But other options include enrollment in an APEX course that does not result in credit for that APEX course, or preparation for SAT, preparation for a STAR EOC. Khan Academy is a resource available to all students, and they can spend 2 hours prepping in that resource for Khan Academy, so on and so forth. So those are just some of the suggestions. When it comes to the campus decisions, we're going to definitely do what's in the best and the easiest interest of our students so that they can easily get the asterisks removed.
I think simply put, that community service is covering a lot in the back. We're using that as our as cover.
So first of all, are you going to have a breakout room? And if not, I have like a global question. I think applies to everybody because it has gotten late. So I don't want to keep you.
Do you want to go with your global question and then we can field any other questions?
So the form that was sent out for people to challenge is a little bit confusing. So is there, because the Power School, it spits out a lot of, a lot of letters and a lot of codes. Are we supposed to basically go line by line and explain where our child was, or are we supposed to argue each line, or how do we, without going into a ton of details?
Okay. So there was 2 different forms sent out. The form that was sent out initially was for those parents who actually received NGs on the report card. And so that form does want every unexcused absence to be addressed. The form is a little different. You have to actually write it. You can't really do it online or anything like that. So only some 30 some odd parents, students receive that form. So I don't know if that's what you're talking about. And it's generally a handwritten, then there's, another 2 pages behind it that you fill out for each day, addressing the unexcused absences. So if that's what you're talking about, yes, you need to address each unexcused absence. Now, the form that was sent out for the other 90 parents and that most parents received is digitized. You can just simply type in and you can check a box, and you simply need to list the classes in which you have 6 or more absences, and that's it with that form. The difference between those two situations is that the first situation, those kids actually had NGs on a report card. So we actually have to go in and make the removal. We have to actually do it. The second group, the NG is potentially is going to pop up if HISD pushes a button, and so this is just in case they decide to do that, we have this documentation to say no, to correct it. So I don't know which situation you're in there, but if you really got an NG on there, yeah, you need to fill out that form and address the unexcused absences, because we already have the excuse notes. So the ones that are unexcused just need to be addressed.
Yeah. Okay.
Could I
And
make I'm sorry, could I just make a note in regards to submitting notes? And this is hot off the press, and it's more or less an idea. I hadn't even shared this with Mr. Garner just yet, but there was an idea about vamping or revamping things at the front desk. Do you all remember during COVID when if you were a parent and you came to school, you were pretty much restricted from coming into the building? So we had a QR code at the front door. I talked to Mr. Seha today about creating a QR code at the front desk, more or less for students. And if they were submitting a handwritten note, they could submit the note, go to the QR code, fill in some information, submit that, and that would be a receipt that the note was actually submitted. Many times parents are under the impression that a note was submitted, but when we look in the file, it's not there. And I don't know what happened to that note, if it was turned in, if it wasn't turned in. I do know that sometimes, many times, when we called the student to the front, oh yeah, it's in my backpack, I forgot to turn it in. So anyway, there are various different variables, and I think we can have an update that would notify the student and the parent that yet the note was submitted. And of course, parents who submit an email, of course, you know, that creates a record both on the receiver as well as the sender. But that is something that we're looking forward to probably installing at the beginning of cycle 5, which I believe is February 27th. And I would love at any point, if you all have any feedback, you're welcome to provide that to me. But it's hot off the press. We just thought about it today. And Mr. Seha, our tech guru, and I will work towards putting that together.
Seems like an excellent idea. Okay, so breakout rooms. We had all of our existing committees uploaded into Zoom. So there are many potential rooms, but the main ones that we had talked about doing were the nomination committee with Gary, Crash Bash with Allison,